We have been lied to our entire lives about what it means when an argument stops. Society loves to wrap conflict in romantic cliches, telling us that silence is golden, that time heals all wounds, or that the person who stops talking first is simply taking the high road to keep the peace. But let us strip away that comforting varnish and look at the brutal, bleeding truth underneath. When someone completely drops their armor, stops yelling, stops sighing, and refuses to offer another single word of explanation, they are not surrendering. They are not waiting for you to calm down so you can have a civilized, productive conversation later. That absolute, terrifying quietness is the exact moment they have decided to revoke your clearance to their inner world. It is the final, merciless execution of a relationship, performed without a single drop of spilled blood. Think about the last time you found yourself locked in a fierce dispute with someone who mattered deeply to you. You threw every weapon you had into the ring. You raised your voice, you dragged up past mistakes, you pointed out their flaws with surgical precision, and you demanded that they answer you, that they justify themselves, that they look you in the eye and admit they were wrong. You believed that as long as they were shouting back, defending themselves, or even angrily crying, the connection was still alive. You thought that argument was proof of investment. You comforted yourself with the dangerous delusion that a heated fight means both people still care enough to fix it. Every retort they fired back at you, no matter how harsh, was a bridge connecting the two of you across the chasm of misunderstanding. You mistook noise for passion and resistance for a willingness to bridge the gap. Then, something shifted. It might have happened gradually over months of repeating the exact same complaints to a brick wall, or it might have snapped in a single afternoon when you crossed a line you didn't even realize existed. Suddenly, the shouting stopped. The frantic text messages turned into single-word replies, and then into blue check marks left unread. The heated debate dissolved into a thick, suffocating fog of total indifference. When you tried to drag them back into the ring, expecting the usual defense, you met only a blank stare or a polite, vacant nod. They looked at you not with anger, but with the hollow, detached expression one reserves for a stranger asking for directions on a street corner. And in that terrifying vacuum of sound, your panic began to set in. You desperately demanded an explanation, shouting that they needed to talk to you, that they couldn't just shut you out like that. But your words fell into a bottomless well, returning no echo at all. What you failed to realize in that agonizing moment is that human beings do not exhaust themselves by accident. People do not suddenly wake up one morning and decide to throw away years of history over a petty disagreement. Long before the silence sets in, there is a prolonged, agonizing period of internal mourning that happens entirely behind closed doors. They tried to explain their perspective to you 100 times before, using gentle words, then frustrated tones, then desperate pleas. But you were too busy polishing your own arguments, too focused on winning the debate, too convinced of your own moral high ground to actually listen. You treated their vulnerabilities as targets to shoot at. You weaponized their honesty against them. And, because you showed them, time and time again, that giving you access to their true feelings only resulted in those feelings being minimized, dismissed, or twisted into weapons, their survival instinct finally kicked in. That is when the machinery of caring quietly shuts down. The mind calculates the cost-benefit analysis of further communication and realizes that investing another syllable is an absolute waste of precious lifetime energy. The moment they stop arguing with you is the exact moment they stop expecting anything from you. It is the psychological equivalent of a landlord boarding up a dilapidated building because the tenant has proven entirely incapable of paying rent or respecting the property. They realize that trying to make you understand who they are, what they need, and why they hurt is like trying to explain the concept of color to someone born completely blind. The effort required vastly outweighs any potential reward, so they simply turn off the lights, lock the front door, and walk away from the property forever. Most people are utterly unequipped to handle this kind of quiet rejection. We are conditioned to fear anger because anger is loud and unpredictable, but we foolishly mistake silence for peace. We think that if someone isn't yelling at us, everything must be fine. We prefer the chaos of a screaming match because at least a screaming match proves we still exist in their universe. Silence, on the other hand, is the ultimate erasure. It reduces you to absolute insignificance. When someone stops arguing with you, they're effectively telling you that you are no longer worth the calories it takes to articulate a sentence. They are stripping away your status as an intimate partner, a trusted friend, or an important interlocutor, and downgrading you to the status of background noise. You can scream all you want, wave your hands, demand answers, and play the victim, but you are shouting into an empty room. The person you are trying to reach has already checked out of the hotel, packed their bags, and caught the earliest flight out of your life. This is the hard, unvarnished reality that nobody wants to admit. We spend our lives complaining about people who nag us, pick fights, or nitpick our every move, secretly wishing they would just back off and leave us alone. But the day they actually grant that wish by becoming completely silent is the day the real tragedy begins. Because when someone stops fighting with you, it means they've stopped fighting for the relationship. They have surrendered their hope, packed up their empathy, and accepted the grim reality that you will never truly get it. They no longer care if you misjudge them, they no longer care if you think they are the bad guy, and they certainly no longer care if you understand their side of the story. They have taken the key to their heart back from your hands and locked the door from the inside. So the next time you find yourself staring across a room at someone who used to give you the world, but now offers you nothing more than a chilling, indifferent silence, do not pat yourself on the back for winning the argument. Do not comfort yourself with the illusion that they finally agree with you or that they are just taking a temporary breather. Understand the terrifying magnitude of what has just occurred. You didn't win, you were disqualified. You didn't convince them, you exhausted them. You pushed until the rubber band of their patience snapped, and now you are left standing in the wreckage of a connection you destroyed through your own relentless need to be right. The quietness filling the room right now is not peace, it is the sound of a soul permanently checking out of your life, taking every chance at being understood with them to the grave, leaving you entirely alone with the hollow victory of your own unbroken voice. You didn't win the argument by making them silent. You just proved you no longer matter enough to be answered.